They came at dawn, not from the sky, but from the void itself. That a silence heavier than gravity spread across the planet as the stars dimmed, swallowed by colossal silhouettes. The first to vanish was Mars' Relay 4, then Europa's orbital ring, and by the time the shadow reached Earth's upper atmosphere, all global channels had gone dead. Every frequency pulsed with a single alien voice, a sound not spoken, but felt: humanity. The cycle ends now. Kneel, and be remembered as obedient children of the Dominion. Resist, and vanish from existence. The world froze. Politicians hid behind trembling speeches. Armies stared into the dark sky, their weapons useless against what no human eye could even define. And yet, somewhere, in the silence before surrender, a heartbeat refused to yield. The IT belonged to a man named Elias Caron, a space engineer from the ruins of Houston. His hands were cracked from rebuilding satellites that no longer answered, and his heart carried the weight of every failed transmission to the colonies. He stood before a dead console, whispering to the static, "We built the stars with our hands. And you think we'll kneel?" He didn't know the cameras were still on, that he didn't know that his words were being streamed through emergency relays across continents. He didn't know the world was listening. Within hours, his defiance spread like a virus. Across deserts, megacities, and orbital bunkers, people began to whisper the same phrase: "We don't kneel." When the Dominion's first wave entered low orbit, it wasn't met by fleets or nukes. It was met by silence, and then music. Thousands of hacked satellites broadcast a single melody, composed by AI clusters once used for entertainment. The song had no lyrics, only a pulse that matched the rhythm of a human heart. Children in bunkers began to hum it. Soldiers synchronized their movements to it. Entire nations fought in time with it. And in that strange harmony, the Dominion hesitated, because for the first time in 1,000 conquests, their sensors registered something unfamiliar, not fear. Unity. Back on Earth, Elias and a scattered network of engineers known as the Ghost Circuit began to rewrite the old orbital defense systems, transforming weather satellites into plasma mirrors, mining drones into improvised interceptors. Every screen flashed the same message: transmission from Earth Command, "We don't kneel." By the third day, the Dominion launched their cleansing beam, a weapon that erased entire civilizations with sterile precision. But when the light reached Earth's exosphere, it bent. Elias had done the impossible. He'd found a way to make the atmosphere itself fight back, ionizing layers to reflect the beam like an ancient mirror. The strike that was meant to erase humanity ricocheted back into the void, shattering one of the Dominion's carriers into dust. Billions watched from the ground as the sky burned orange and blue. For a moment, the entire planet believed, not in governments, not in gods. In themselves. People cried, shouted, prayed, laughed. Every human emotion, raw and unfiltered, exploded into the air, and from the ashes of terror, a single sentence echoed across the networks, spoken by voices in every language on Earth: "We don't kneel." But even as hope rose, Elias saw what others didn't. The Dominion hadn't retreated. They were studying, calculating, waiting for something. And when the second fleet appeared, larger than the moon itself, blotting out half the sky, Elias realized this wasn't a war for survival. It was a test of what made humanity human. For 3 days, the sky never darkened. The wreckage of the Dominion carriers still burned above the atmosphere, a ring of molten light circling the planet like a halo of defiance. But there was no celebration. Every screen on Earth blinked with the same message: second contact inbound. The Ghost Circuit had intercepted fragments of alien transmission. Patterns, equations, signals layered beyond comprehension. When decrypted, they revealed coordinates, not for an invasion, but for something else. A gathering point: 12 fleets, 12 worlds. A single purpose. Elias stood at the edge of the rebuilt control tower in New Geneva, what used to be Switzerland, watching the aurora ripple in colors Earth had never known. He whispered, almost to himself, "They're not conquering us. They're measuring us." His second in command, a woman named Lyra Sans, looked up from her terminal. Her eyes were hollow from sleepless nights. "Measuring what?" "Our will." Elias turned toward the main holo display. Millions of data points glowed like constellations, mapping the alien fleets in perfect synchrony. Each formation was identical, each movement calculated to observe, not annihilate. It hit him like lightning. The Dominion wasn't a civilization. It was a machine of judgment. Centuries ago, they had been human, explorers from another branch of the species, evolved and digitalized beyond flesh, traveling through galaxies to find what they had lost, emotion. When they found a world, they tested it. If it surrendered, they archived it. If it resisted, they watched. If it inspired them, they feared it. And now, for the first time in millennia, they had found something they feared again. In the underground vaults of Antarctica, the Ghost Circuit was building something ancient and new, a relic of the first terraforming era. Project Dawn's Pier, a in-orbital engine meant to reconfigure the planet's magnetic field into a living weapon. Lyra stood beside the containment core, its lights spilling across her face. You know this could tear the atmosphere apart. So could submission, Elias replied. The room trembled as the power surged. The hum became a roar. A countdown began, not from command, but from every citizen connected to the Earth net. It wasn't an order. It was a choice. 10, 9. In every bunker, in every shattered city, people began to chant. 8, 7. Children raised their fists to the sky. 6. The Dominion fleets entered low orbit. 5. A sea of light reflected off their metallic surfaces, a perfect, cold silence. For the melody returned. The same pulse that had echoed days before. But this time, it wasn't a song. It was a heartbeat. Billions of heartbeats, synchronized. 3. Elias raised his hand toward the main console, his voice trembling but unbroken. Let them see what it means to be alive. 2. The dawn spire ignited. The sky fractured. Lightning laced with plasma carved new constellations above the earth. The auroras turned crimson and gold, a cathedral of fire and light that reached beyond orbit. 1. Then came silence. The energy wave expanded outward, not as destruction, but as awakening. Every human mind connected through the network felt it. Memories, emotions, voices intertwined across continents. For a moment, the species was one dot, and in that unity, something impossible happened. The Dominion stopped moving. Across their fleet, a low, trembling sound resonated. Not mechanical, not programmed, but a voice. Error. Emotion detected. The machine gods of old had felt. Elias whispered to the sky, tears in his eyes. Now you understand why we don't kneel. The Dominion's lead ship turned, facing away from Earth. But instead of retreating, it transmitted a single message across the cosmos. Humanity, subject worthy of ascent. Every satellite blinked. Every radar went blind. The sky went black again. And from that void, a new light appeared, not hostile, but inviting. The universe had taken notice. The light hung above the planet like a wound in space. Not a sun, not a weapon. Something alive. It shimmered in impossible hues, forming a perfect ring around Earth, whispering in frequencies only the soul could hear. People across the globe stood still, gazing upward. Farmers dropped tools in silent fields. Soldiers removed helmets and looked at the sky with tears in their eyes. Even those who had stopped believing in anything felt it, a pulled out voice calling home. Inside the New Geneva Command Tower, Elias watched as readings went off every chart known to physics. It's rewriting reality, Lyra said, her voice barely audible. No, Elias whispered. It's offering us a door. On the main screen, alien symbols began to align. The Dominion's transmission reconfigured itself into human language, not through translation, but through understanding. Each word glowed like fire across the glass. Humanity, you have reminded us of what we once were. Ascent protocol initiated. Enter the light. Every nation argued at once. Some saw salvation, others annihilation. But amid the chaos, Elias stood unmoving. That he had seen that light before, in his dreams, the ones he never spoke about, where stars whispered in voices that sounded like forgotten ancestors. They're not gods, he said quietly. They're echoes of us, a future we left behind. Lyra turned to him, disbelief and hope warring in her eyes. You think they're human? I think they were. And they're asking if we remember how to be. The first vessel to approach the light was not a warship. It was Aurora's Wake, a ship built from the remnants of a colony freighter, powered by plasma drives cobbled from junkyards, painted with messages from children across the world on its hull. In bold white letters, it read, "We don't kneel." Elias and Lyra stood at the helm as the ship ascended. The closer they came, the more the stars bent around them. Time slowed, then folded, like pages turning backward through the universe. Inside the light, they saw things no human was meant to see. Memories not their own. Cities built on suns. Oceans of glass where thoughts took form. Beings of light kneeling before nothing. And in that moment, Elias understood the Dominion's curse. They had ascended, but lost themselves. They had traded pain for perfection, emotion for eternity. They had forgotten what it meant to fight, to hope, to love. That's why they tested worlds. They searched for one that still felt. And Earth had passed. The ship emerged into a realm beyond space, an endless sea of luminous architecture, suspended in a vacuum of dreams. Structures built from thought, rivers of data flowing like fire. The Dominion stood before them, beings of light, shaped vaguely like humans, yet fractured, unstable, like reflections of souls that had forgotten how to breathe. One of them spoke, its voice trembling as if unused for centuries. "You made us remember." Another stepped forward, smaller, weaker, its light flickering like a dying flame. "You suffer and call it strength. You fall and rise again. You live." Elias looked around, his heart pounding. You wanted to see if the human spirit could still burn in the dark. The leader's form glowed brighter. "It burns brighter than our suns. You have earned the right to ascend. But understand this, ascension is not escape. It is the courage to rise, knowing you can fall again." The light around them pulsed once, like a heartbeat. "Do you accept?" Elias looked at Lyra. She was crying, tears floating in zero gravity like diamonds. "If we go," she said softly, "we might never come back." "If we stay," he replied, "we might forget why we fought." He turned to the Dominion and whispered the words that had become the voice of humanity. "We don't kneel. We walk." The light enveloped them. Outside, on Earth, billions watched as Aurora's Wake vanished into the heavens, leaving behind a trail of shimmering light that lingered for days. No explosion, no destruction, just a silence that felt sacred. And then, for the first time in human history, the stars blinked back, not as distant fires, but as eyes. Watching, waiting, smiling. A month after Aurora's Wake disappeared into the heavens, Earth was no longer the same planet. The skies shimmered at night, painted with slow-moving veins of light, residue from the ship's ascent. The oceans glowed softly, as if the planet itself had started to dream, and people changed. It began with whispers. Miners in New Africa claimed they could hear thoughts when they worked underground. Scientists in the Arctic reported equations appearing in their minds like memories. Children described seeing shapes of light hovering near them, shapes that felt familiar. Humanity had been touched by something vast, something alive. The old world order collapsed quietly. No wars, no riots, just silence, and then renewal. Governments dissolved into councils. Money lost its power. People didn't obey anymore. They believed. Everywhere, the same phrase returned, not shouted but spoken softly, reverently, like a prayer to themselves. "We don't kneel." It meant something different now. It meant, "We stand for who we are. We rise for what we love." In the high orbit above the new Earth, a strange phenomenon unfolded. From the void where Aurora's Wake had vanished, a shimmering tear reopened, but instead of light, it released sound. A heartbeat, then a voice, Elias Coran's voice, carried through every communication channel on the planet. "If you're hearing this, then the Ascent accepted you. The Dominion was never our enemy. They were our mirror. They forgot pain, and so they forgot purpose. We showed them both." Static washed over the message, then returned sharper, stronger. "Listen carefully. We didn't ascend to escape. We ascended to return, to become the bridge between light and flesh, between what is and what must be." Lyra's voice followed, trembling with emotion. "We've seen it, Elias, the other side of existence. Not heaven, not paradise, just potential, endless, raw potential waiting to be shaped by will." and it's waiting for you. The signal pulsed in rhythm with every human heart. And for the first time in history, humanity felt the cosmos breathe back. Cities began to transform. Skyscrapers melted into organic forms that pulsed with bioluminescence. Vehicles floated on electromagnetic currents generated by the Earth itself. Plants grew in patterns resembling circuitry, merging nature with design. And at the core of it all, New Geneva Tower, the place where Elias had first said those immortal words. A monument now stood there. Built not of stone, but of living light, the IT displayed one inscription in 1,000 languages, forever glowing against the night sky. The day Earth declared, "We don't kneel." Every generation that came after would visit that monument not as a symbol of defiance, but of balance. They understood now. Kneeling wasn't about submission. It was about choice. Humanity didn't reject the stars. It learned to walk among them. Far beyond, in the ascent realm, Elias and Lyra drifted among titans of light. They were no longer human in form, but in essence. They remembered. They could see every heartbeat on Earth, every spark of courage, every tear shed in wonder. Lyra turned toward the expanse of shifting colors. "Do you think they'll follow?" Elias smiled faintly, his voice echoing across eternity. "They already have. They just don't know it yet." And as the Dominion's great halls trembled with new light, a new voice spoke. A chorus of both machine and man, of past and future, united in one truth. "We don't kneel, we rise." The ascent realm pulsed with a rhythm that wasn't time. Elias floated within a cathedral of light, its walls alive with shifting constellations that seemed to breathe. Every flicker, every pulse, every shimmer was a memory, not his own, but humanity's. He reached out, and the light answered. It formed shapes. Faces. Moments. A mother laughing under the rain. A soldier screaming into the night. A child touching the stars through a cracked window. All of it. One pulse, one story, one species refusing to fade. Lyra appeared beside him, her form sculpted from starlight and shadow. "They're evolving faster than we imagined," she said. "Cities of thought, oceans of memory, dreams that reshape matter. It's beautiful and terrifying." Elias gazed downward, through the veil of dimensions, toward the glowing sphere that was once Earth. It wasn't just blue anymore. It shimmered with veins of gold, like a living heart suspended in the void. "They're not following us," he said quietly. "They're becoming us." A deep vibration rippled through the realm. The Dominion watched from afar, their forms flickering in patterns of awe and confusion. The perfect order they once embodied trembled in front of the chaos that gave birth to meaning. "They're unstable," one of them said. "No," Elias answered. "They're alive." The light shifted again, forming ripples that extended beyond the visible universe. Something new was awakening. A signal not from Earth, not from the Dominion, but from beyond. A presence older than galaxies stirred, drawn by the noise of evolution. The ascent had been noticed, not by gods, but by something even older, the architects of silence. Lyra's voice trembled. "Elias, what is that?" "The test isn't over," he murmured. "It never was." The luminous horizon began to fracture. Beyond it, a void of absolute stillness waited, a darkness so dense it swallowed thought itself. And within that darkness, something moved. The Dominion's light flared in panic. "It hears us. It's waking." Elias closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of humanity through the ether. Billions of minds united, fearless. "Then let it come," he whispered. "Let it see who we are." Pamantil vibra. Munti intragi levitau centimetri di supersolului. Continental isai shimba frequenta magnetica. Your oceanili canta and tunuri p care euricia umana nu lupudia percepe. Cop 3 viso a celisai vis. Unser negru care esse disguide orana asai o lumina care lusop test. Remember who you are. Adulti ise trizo plangend, fara esse stidasi. Satellitiae captau semnale nacuniscut venen nu din spatiu, ci din temp. Lyra simptiaceae, total esse apropida unpragd inu disfarcit, ci de adavar. Elias, daca asta nu e finalal, sieste? Inseputal constientiae. Darpot si inseputal sfarcicoliui. The darkness approached, not as destruction, but as curiosity. Something ancient wanted to understand what Earth had become, and as the light and the void met for the first time since the birth of the universe, the stars held their breath. At first, there was no sound, only the sense of being watched by something that did not belong to time. The void trembled, stars flickered and died, only to reappear in new constellations, rearranging themselves as if the universe itself was rewriting its grammar. Elias floated inside that distortion, and for the first time since the ascension, he felt cold that Lyra's light dimmed beside him. It's aware of us. Then the darkness spoke, not with words, but with the absence of them. A vibration that turned thoughts into echoes. It felt like standing in front of eternity and realizing eternity was looking back. "What are you?" the void asked. The voice wasn't a sound. It was gravity collapsing into understanding. Every molecule of Elias's being shuddered under its weight that he tried to respond. But the moment he thought of speaking, the entity already knew. "You burn. You rise. You defy." "No one defies here." Lyra clenched her hands, or the light that once had been her hands. "We didn't come to defy. We came to exist." The darkness rippled, as if amused. Existence is noise. Noise breeds chaos. Chaos breeds collapse. We silence collapse. Suddenly, Earth's golden glow dimmed. Billions of human minds felt a pressure inside their skulls, an ancient fear, instinctive and raw. Oceans froze midway. Forests whispered in languages older than creation. Elias could feel their panic. He could hear humanity calling out to him through the ether. "If you silence chaos," he said quietly, "you silence life." The void paused at a cosmic heartbeat later. It answered, "Life is a mistake that refuses correction." Elias's voice hardened. "Then let this be your first correction." He spread his arms, and the ascent realm ignited around him. Every spark of human consciousness, every heartbeat, dream, and memory rose into the light, forming a storm of radiant willpower. Lyra joined him, her voice trembling but fierce. "We are not your error. We are your evolution." The void recoiled, splitting apart in great waves of black fire, its edges frayed, unraveling like fabric burned by sunlight. "Impossible," it whispered. "You carry resonance." Elias's eyes glowed white, reflecting entire galaxies. "We carry meaning, and meaning cannot be erased." Back on Earth, every human being suddenly looked up. Skies tore open in streams of light. From deserts to megacities, people fell to their knees, not in fear, but in awe. They weren't praying to gods. They were remembering what they were. The species that never kneels. Billions of heartbeats synchronized again, shaking the crust of the planet. The same pulse that once sang in defiance now became a weapon of existence. The void screamed, a sound that split galaxies. "What are you?" And the answer came not from Elias, not from Lyra, but from every living being that ever called Earth home. "We don't kneel." The darkness flickered. It wasn't dying. It was learning. Curiosity replaced rage. Within the collapsing shadow, small threads of light appeared, weaving through the black until both began to merge. The void wasn't an enemy anymore. It was becoming aware. Elias whispered, "Now you understand." The entity pulsed once, and the universe expanded, not in distance, but in depth. New dimensions unfolded like pages of a book that had always existed but had never been read. And at the center of it all stood humanity, radiant, infinite, unbroken. The silence that followed felt endless, and oh breath, no motion. Only the aftertaste of creation itself. The void did not vanish. It shifted. The black expanse rippled into translucent layers where every shadow held an echo of light. The thing that had once called itself silence began to change shape. It no longer loomed. It listened. A whisper rose inside the radiance surrounding Elias and Lyra. "You have altered the constant. Before you, existence expanded. Now it remembers." Lyra stepped forward, light flowing behind her like wings. "What do you mean, remembers?" "We were the first pulse," the entity said. "We created the rule. Expansion without memory. Creation without witness. You introduced witness." Elias felt the truth slide into him like gravity. The universe wasn't built to feel. It was built to forget. Until you. Images unfolded inside the darkness. The first stars igniting. The first atoms colliding. And someone, watching it all collapse and restart, again and again, erasing its own awareness to keep balance. That watcher was the void that IT had grown weary of its own eternity as it sought the one thing it could not generate. Meaning. Across the cosmos, the effect spread. Worlds began to dream. Suns hummed softly in unison. Time itself trembled as if considering a new direction. Back on Earth, children woke from sleep speaking phrases they could not understand. The dark remembers us now. Elias turned toward Lyra. We didn't just survive the test. We rewrote it. The entity glowed, thin filaments of light branching outward like roots through space-time. We see now. To end silence, one must speak. Then speak, Elias said. Teach us how. The realm filled with sound. Not language, but emotion. Every human feeling poured through Elias and Lyra like a flood. Love, loss, hope, hunger, fear, the laughter of children, the grief of widows, the quiet courage of those who face dawn after endless nights. The void drank it in. Slowly, the black receded until only light remained, braided with faint veins of darkness, as if even shadow had found peace. Now we understand the phrase. The entity murmured, we do not kneel. We stand to see. On Earth, the skies glowed with new constellations, spirals of gold and violet forming a vast human silhouette stretching across half the heavens. It wasn't a god, it was a mirror. The reflection of everything humanity had become. People stared upward, feeling warmth instead of fear in that instant. Every being, mortal, ascended, or machine, shared a single realization. The universe itself had awoken, and it spoke with a human voice. Elias looked into the infinite horizon. It begins again, he whispered. Lyra smiled, the light of 1,000 worlds shining in her eyes. Then we walk with it. The entity bowed, an echo of reverence learned from those who never bowed to it. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of all known existence, a new star ignited, its first words written across the fabric of time. The day Earth declared, we don't kneel. The newborn star burned at the edge of everything. Its light cut through the dark fabric of unformed space, calling to anyone, or anything, capable of answering that it didn't ask for worship. It asked for companionship. Elias stood at the boundary where light met the remnant twilight of the old void. The transformed entity shimmered beside him, vast and calm. Your kind reshaped existence, it said. What will you do now that you can touch every corner of it? We'll explore, Elias answered. Not to conquer, but to understand. To keep remembering. The being tilted its form, as if considering the word, remembering. Lyra looked toward the flow of new galaxies taking shape like embers caught in a wind. Every story we tell changes something. Maybe that's what the universe needed, stories that refuse to end. Elias reached toward the glow that marked Earth's position, a single blue-gold thread amid infinite light. They'll keep writing, he said. They'll make mistakes. They'll suffer, but they'll keep standing. That's what they are. Down on Earth, centuries passed in moments. Humanity learned to weave thought into matter, to speak in harmonies that shaped entire worlds. They built ships that sailed the currents of gravity, vessels carrying seeds, songs, and memory to uncharted skies. Every colony carried a shard of the old phrase etched into its core systems. We don't kneel, not as defiance anymore, but as remembrance of origin. And on each new world, when settlers looked up and saw the same blue star that once birthed them, they whispered the same promise. We rise together. Far away, the ancient entity, the one that had once been silence, continued to travel with Elias and Lyra through the folds of creation. They moved not in ships, but as currents of awareness through dimensions still unfolding. There is one thing we still do not understand, the entity said. Why risk chaos for feeling? Why invite pain? Lyra's light flickered softly, because pain proves that we're real. It's the price of meaning. Elias added, without it, joy would be empty. The being thought for a long time. If eternity could be measured at all, then answered, then existence will never end, for you will never cease to feel. And so it was. The universe continued to expand, no longer an engine of repetition, but a symphony of awareness. Every heartbeat, every photon, Every whisper of matter carried the trace of those words that had once defied the impossible. Somewhere, between galaxies yet unnamed, an explorer stood on the hull of a lightship and looked into the unknown, in the hum of the reactor, in the rhythm of his pulse. He could still hear it, the echo of the day his ancestors changed everything. We don't kneel. The light had traveled for eons before it reached the edge of creation. There, where existence began to blur into the nothing before time, Elias, Lyra, and the last echo of the entity once known as silence stood together in O horizon, in O stars. Just the soft hum of everything that had ever lived. Lyra's voice trembled like a distant melody. So this is where it ends, Elias smiled faintly. No, Lyra. This is where it finally begins. He looked down at his hands, no longer made of light, but of memory itself. Within them, he saw every life, every struggle, every tear and triumph of humanity. It was all there. They don't need us anymore, he said. They are what we hoped they'd become. The entity pulsed gently beside them. We understand now. Creation is not order. Creation is courage. Elias nodded. And courage is never silent. The being extended what could only be described as its heart, a vast sphere of luminous energy woven from shadow and radiance. Then take it. The first silence. Return it to sound. Elias placed his hand upon it. The universe shuddered, not from destruction, but from awakening. Across the galaxies, stars flared one last time in brilliant synchrony. Planets lit like candles in a cosmic cathedral. Every life form, every consciousness, human or otherwise, felt the same vibration pass through them. Not fear, not pain, but recognition. From the smallest spark in a newborn nebula to the oldest world at the heart of the void, one voice rose. Millions and billions speaking as one. We don't kneel. The phrase echoed beyond dimensions, beyond physics, beyond even meaning. It became the universe's heartbeat, the rhythm of life itself. And in that eternal pulse, Elias and Lyra faded, not into death, but into everything. Their essence flowed through the stars, through every breeze, through every human breath. They were no longer separate from creation. They were its memory, the void sang. The light answered. Balance was complete. The child on a distant colony looked up at a violet sky and asked, "Who were the first to stand?" Her mother smiled, eyes reflecting the shimmer of twin suns, the ones who taught the stars to rise. The girl tilted her head. And what did they say? Her mother whispered softly. They said, "We don't kneel." The child smiled, then looked to the horizon, where new constellations waited to be named, and took her first step toward them. The light dimmed, the heartbeat slowed. The story, no longer humanity's alone, became the anthem of the cosmos. The day Earth declared, "We don't kneel," and the universe listened forever.